Hello, this is Fakhruddin, and today we're going to learn about Apache Avro. Hello, in this video we're going to learn about what Apache Avro is. So Avro is basically a data serialization framework which is developed by Apache's Hadoop project. So Avro is basically an schema which is defined in two ways. That is, one is AVSC and one is AVDL. So you can read up about AVSC and AVDL on Google, and I'm going to explain later. So the first thing we need is an IDE called Eclipse in Windows. So what we're going to do is we're going to integrate the Maven into the Eclipse. So as you can see on the screen, the first thing is we need to integrate that Maven plugin into Eclipse. So you can go to this particular website. I'm going to put it on in the description. So you can drag and directly put it into the Eclipse, but I'm not going to do that since I already have Eclipse. So as soon as you install and the installation gets over, try to restart the Eclipse so that all the things are installed properly. And as soon as you finish the installation as well as restarting the Eclipse, you can go to project, and then you will find something called as Maven. So you can go under Maven project, go to next. Choose your default workspace location, whatever prefers best. Just go next. Don't worry about what the type is going to use. So the group ID is basically, I'm going to tell you how group ID, how artifact ID, and how version behaves when we move on to the Avro. But package is as normal as the normal package in Java. So just name whatever the group ID is. Name artifact ID. So this is basically your project name. Make sure you remove the project name from your package because it creates a confusion later. Just click on finish. I'm not going to do that. I already have a project called Maven. So this is the completion of Maven installation and how you're going to create a project called Maven. So let's see how can we add Avro to Maven. So you can simply type Apache Avro in the Google. So it says Apache Avro. Let's go to the documentation. Let's go to the latest version for now. And let's say getting started. So since we are dealing with Java, right now we'll say getting started with Java. If you're doing Python, go with the Python. So yeah, this is how you download Avro into your particular POM. So there are two ways to do it. Either you can add an Avro jar file to your project into the Eclipse. That is, go to the properties, and so this is how you can add. Go to the build path. You can go to the configure path since I have not yet configured everything. So you can go to configure build path, and then you get the external libraries to it. But that is not a good practice since that won't run on other systems as well. But if you create a dependency in the POM, it can run anywhere else because every time you build a POM, it installs the dependency that you have mentioned in your POM. So I'm going to explain you how POM works as well. So for now, add all these dependencies that I mentioned. So first is the Avro dependency. Others are how Avro and Maven are going to interact with each other. So this is how the Avro Maven plugin is. So please add the entire thing into your POM. So this dependency as well as this plugin. So how you want to add it to your POM is, so when you go to your Maven project, initially you'll get an empty POM when you generate a new project, when you create a new project. Try to add everything. Make sure when you add in plugins, you mention a default goal, because if you don't mention it and then you try to run the Maven, build the POM, it will show an error saying that you have not mentioned the goal. So it's on a safer side, just say default goal is installed. So make sure you put this build tags as well. So plugins should be under build tags. So yeah. I'll show how a source directory and output directly are configured later when we make a schema. For now, just give whatever is there in the on the website. So this is basically the JDK tools that they're using and whatever version they're using. So this is the ideal protocol. I'm going to explain you what ideal is. So when I said there are two types of schema, AVSC and AVDL, we are going to deal more with AVDL since it's easy to make and easy to understand, and you can write code really faster than AVSC. So that's how you add dependencies into your POM. So make sure the dependencies are out of the build tags, because inside build only do plugins. So inside dependencies, you add all these dependencies. Fine. So now we move on to how we define a schema into for an Avro. So for AVSC, basically it will be a JSON object. So if you know how JSON works, you can easily define a schema. But if you don't know how JSON works, don't worry. We have something called as AVDL, and we can just build as we want. So let's first move on to the JSON. So this is how it works. So first we have to give a namespace. So namespace basically how how the records are going to store into our particular Maven project. So it says example.avro. So it is gonna create two folders, that is example, inside which there will be Avro. So the type of this particular thing is record. So inside records you will have different fields. So the name of the record is user, and inside the fields you have three fields here. That is name of the field is name itself. The type of the field is strings. So before we move on to how we define a schema, let's see what all types an Avro can accept. So these are the different types of Avro. So the first one is the primitive type, that is null, boolean, integer, long, float, and other things, as you can see. The complex types are records. So consider that the fields are into the records, and you can create multiple records in a particular file. So I'm going to explain how record is when we make an AVDL. So enums. So enums work same as how it works in Java. So we give a particular name of the enum, that is suit over here, and we give the symbols. So each symbol is a string over here, right? And then we give an array. So though we mention array in the schema, when we build the project, we have to deal those array as a list since it's a collection. So, and other things are union. So union plays plays an important role in Avro. So what happens in union is basically, you can say that a variable type can be of string or it can be of null, or you can say it can be of string or it can be of type of integer. So that's how the union helps. And another one is maps. So map is a normal map in Java. So you just have to give a type and then you give the value for it. So the fixed one is, so this fixed is basically, you mention the length. So you mention the type, that is fixed type. Then you mention the size. So whatever the size of that particular variable is. So to get a better feel and better understanding of how the AVDL works, let's move on to AVDL. So let's see the first AVDL, that is named on AVDL. And so we can open all the AVDLs over here. Yeah. So let's see the first AVDL, that's person or AVDL. So this is the namespace. So right now I have given com or hello world for this particular project. So maintain namespace according to your project. Then we create a protocol. So basically the protocol for all the records will be same if they have the interdependency. So since we are using name and purchase AVDL as well in this particular AVDL, we have to import. So this is the syntax for importing a particular AVDL. Make sure you name it everything correctly. So this is how we define a record. So the name of the record, so record, and then the name of the record, so person. And then you say the types of fields that you want. So the first field is person ID, type of integer. So this is how I explain union. So gender can be, so what union says is either this field is necessary, or if you don't want to fill, just put it null, or you just don't set it anything to that particular field, and it will directly assign null. So that's an advantage, since let's say some fields are not actually necessary when you move on to Hadoop, when you move on to big data. Some fields are used very less number of times. So this is a better way to do it. But some fields are necessary, as like we see person ID. So since the uniqueness is defined to a person ID, we know that it is important. So we have to set the value, or else it will give an error. So this is something new. So this is union name. So what is this name? This is confusing. Name is not a type. Yes, it is a type of record. So let's go to this particular record wherever it is defined. So this is name.avdl. So again, like I said, the namespace for all of them should be same, so that it's easier to access those AVDLs and POJOs. So this particular pharmacy protocol, under this we have a name, under which we have 3 fields, that is full name, first name, last name. Fine. So this is a particular name record. So when we import this particular name AVDL record into this particular, means this name takes 3 arguments, I mean 3 variables, that is full name, first name, and last name. Fine. So let's move to addresses. So addresses have union. In union you have either it can take null or it can take array of strings. So this is how you define an array of whatever type you want. You can mention integer or string or whatever primitive type you want. Same goes for the phones. So you can assign a default value as well when you don't want to give anything to the phones. Let's say sometimes the phone number is not mandatory, so it gives an empty list to it. So email ID is type of string, which is necessary. Again, this is something new. So array of purchases. So what is purchases? It's a record. So let's go to that particular record. So it says record purchases, and inside that there are multiple fields. So yeah, that's how we can remove this, because let's not make it more complicated. Let's put the dependency to level itself. So this is how you define a particular AVDL. So now what I'm gonna do is, let's go to the POM. Let's go to source directory. So basically what happens is, when we try to build the POM, when we say run as Maven build, it downloads all the dependencies, all the plugins that we have mentioned in this POM. And what source directory means, wherever we have put our AVDL files, please generate the POJOs, so that what happens is the AVDLs are converted into Java files as a POJO, so plain object, plain old Java object. So we mentioned the path wherever the schema is stored. So you can see in source main Java, under schema we have all the schemas. And where do we need the output? Inside the source main Java, whatever the output comes, that's fine. So what all the other dependencies I've added, you can pause the video and copy or whatever you want, because this all dependencies are important. You can pause it for a second and just copy paste it. So yeah, if you're done with it, go to the POM, do run is, do a Maven build on it. Just press 1. It takes some time to build. So these are the different versions of Maven that you're building. You don't have to go deep into it. So as you can see, it has built successfully. So go to the Maven, refresh the project by pressing F5, or you can do a refresh. So you can see there's something new created as com or hello world. So you can see these name, person, purchase are converted into Java files, and these are the protocols that you have mentioned. This is the pharmacy protocol. So let's see what is generated under name. So as you scroll down, and if you notice, it's mostly a getter and setter. So you don't have to go deep into it. So when you convert those AVDLs, and when you try to run the POM as a Maven build, what it does is it converts all the AVDLs into Java files. Now what we can do is we can, instead of writing the getters and setters for each and every field and then generating the data based on each and every field, how Avro helps us is we write a normal field name, use Maven compiler plugin, convert those IDL into Java, POJOs, getters and setters, and directly use those getters and setters, and it is very easy to use. So now we're going to create a class and we're going to see how we can generate data based on it. So right now I'm going to pause the video, copy paste the whole code that I have written, and then I'm going to explain each and every line of the code. So this is the class that you see. So that's the generation class. So let's first start with the main method. So first we just say enter the number of users. So basically how many number of data that you want to generate, that is number of users. So why did we make a object of person class itself and not name and purchase? So why? Because the person is the main class, or we can say the main AVDL that we wanted to use, because everything is dependent from a person, or what we can say is if we just generate name, not all the data is going to get generated. If we only generate purchase, not all the data is going to generate. But if we generate person, if we make something out of person, you know that name is going to come into it, purchase is going to come into it. So that is considered as a main class. So that's why we create a user of that particular, or let's say an object of that particular class, and we make use of it. Since whenever we say user person, that is person class dot something, then we can directly set. So yeah, let's move on. So what I've done is I've created a person array on the globally. Yeah, so this is the static person array. So these are list of objects that I've created. Since I need number of users, so list of users. So that I'm going to assign it to the person array. So the first thing is I'm going to do the generate person. So three things I'm going to do here. One is generate person, another one is generate name, another one is generate purchases. So what's going to happen is I'm going to generate name, I'm going to generate purchases, and then I'm going to put all the data into the generate person, because if you have seen, the name and the purchases both are into person. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to generate name, generate purchases, generate person, and put these two into person. So let's see how generate person works. Okay, so what generate person takes is the number of users that you want to generate. So let's initialize array to the number of users that you want. Since we know the fields that we have, that is person ID, let's just set it to 100, because just for the beginning, let's just set it to 100. Yeah, so forget about all these things. I'm going to explain it later. Don't worry, even if you don't get it. So we're going to start a for loop which runs for the number of users. I'm going to initialize my array every time, because if I don't do it, it's going to show me a null pointer exception, obviously, because I'm not assigning a memory to that person array for that particular block. So the first thing that I do is assign memory, assign an object, then address. So as you have seen before, the address was mentioned as string, right? And this was mentioned as long. So you don't see a string over here. So what happens in Avro is you define an AVDL as a string, but in POJOs it gets converted into char sequence. So char sequence is nothing but a string itself, right? So that's how an array gets converted into a list. So we saw that this was an array. This was actually an array of long and array of string, but this becomes an array list. So since it's a collection, it becomes an array list. So the fields that we need to set is person ID, that we have seen. Another one is gender. Another one is address, phones, and at the end we're gonna do string of email. So the things that we can set now is these 5 things. So person ID we have already set 200 initially. Every time the new user comes, it just gets incremented. Sorry. So we give a memory to address and phones, and then I have created a random generator, and there's another array of strings of gender. Since there's only male and female, you can do whatever to randomize it. I've just created an array and put male and female into it, and it generates random male or female for any user. So that's how it does. So in general rand, so out of 0 or 1, one of them gets assigned, and then that gender rand gets assigned in this set gender. So similarly, I have put random value for address and phones as well. So random string utils is a function which is taken from Avro Apache.commons.lang, as you can see over here. That's the reason I asked you guys to put this particular dependency so that we can use whatever class. Now, like I told before, we can put a jar file as well for the commons line and then put the function, but that is not considered as a good practice, since if you try to run this particular project under the other machine, it won't get generated, it won't accept that particular file, since that jar file is only added in your project and not in any other project. So it's better to use dependencies into the POM. Sorry. So random string utils, that's how you use it. Just do random, and how much long string do you want. And chars is basically it will pick the alphabets from this particular string. So randomization of A to Z basically, and the length of it will be 20. And similarly, I've added phones. So this long plus generator of whatever the next thing. So generator is basically a random generator. It generates either random integer or a double or whatever it is. So here comes the first step. So the person array of I is a type of person, right? This is an object of type person. So the things we can set in person is, so let's see an example over here. So right now the list will be generated, as you can see. You can scroll down to explore and get ideas what all things it does. So when we move to set, as you can see, what all fields we can set is set name, set gender, set email address list, phones, purchase, right? So that's how you get it. Try and explore, you'll learn more, definitely. So the first thing is set is person ID, and we put the value for that particular thing. Since an integer, it will accept an integer, as you can see. It accepts an integer value for this particular thing. Since you know set gender is string, it accepts a char sequence value, right? Similarly, other things. So set the person ID, set the gender, set address, set phone, set email. So again, in set emails, I've done randomization of some 15 characters and then just put an @gmail.com just to know that this is an email. This will just generate a random 15 characters out of A to Z. So this will run for how many number of users you have put. So let's say if you put 10 users, it will go for 10 times, and every time it will generate a new user with random strings and random details. And make sure that your person ID, since person ID is a unique thing, every time we make it increment it, it becomes a unique by itself. So we return the person array. So this is an object which is filled with the person data, and it goes back to the main. So since it's an global static, we actually don't have to assign person array every time. It's only required for the first time when you assign number of users to it. So now what we do is we generate name. So let's see the declaration of generate name. So in generate name, since we know there are 3 fields, so that is name and first name, last name, and full name. So what this person name is, okay, let me explain this again. So person name is basically the object that you got it from the person array. So this is basically a person array, but just because we are in this function, we were name it person name because obviously we are setting it a person name. So how we set all the fields over here as a person array of I, um, and set the fields of person, we do the same as a name and then set name and give the name object. So this name object contains all the setters of this particular name, and then we pass that name object into it, and then we return the person name, and then we go back to the main function. Similarly, we generate the purchases, sorry. So in purchases, as you can see, there are so many fields, that is integer, store ID, amount, brand name, generic, and yeah, other two fields as well. So similarly, we set all the fields, so don't worry about timestamp and everything. You can just explore what timestamp is. Why I have put that is basically because I need to put something related to dates. Not much of a use. You can just Google it. The most important part over here is this. So why have we created a list of purchases? Because we have mentioned over here purchases as an array. So obviously it will be a list. So inside person, there is another list of another record. So what we have to do is, this purchase array will be a type of list, and we have to assign each and every list every time we enter the loop to assign a list object to this purchases, right? And let's say how many number of purchases you want in each and every person. So what I've done is I've made it randomized. So it will be from 1 to 10. So that values will be 1 to 10, anything. So number of purchase for each user can be any value from 1 to 10. So then I've created a purchase object that is from this particular class called as purchases, and I've set all the values that I want to, that is store ID, amount, brand name, generic, and purchase date. As you can see, I haven't mentioned prescribed by, just to show you guys that even if I don't mention something which is null, so it won't give me an error because I'm not setting something which is not necessary. So then purchases is the object, and in which it's a list in which I'm adding this purchase object, whatever I've set it over here, and then at the end since I'm still in the loop, this purchase is nothing but the person array, that is this. And just because we are into this function, we have named it in a different way. For your convenience, you can name it as the person array itself. So person purchase of I, then set purchases. So this set purchases is nothing but basically this setting purchases in this particular person. So and set the purchase object and then return it back. So now we have used all the setters that are provided by the POJOs, that is plain old Java objects. The main advantage of an Avro, which reduces the development time for it. Now the main part comes, like I told you, that Avro is a data serialization framework, so everything gets converted into a binary format. How is it useful? Because it takes less number of bytes and it stores into a real small file. So how serialization work is, the whole thing that we have set, that is into person array, that we have set the person, we have set the name, we have set the purchases. Everything is into a person array. If you want, you can just print it. You can just print the array and you'll get all the values. So we pass that array into this serialize function. So let's see where the serialize function is. Yeah. So we say a file that is users.avro. So what users.avro is, whatever the data we generate will be stored into this particular file named as users.avro. You can name it whatever you want. Make sure the format is .avro. So datum writer. So yeah, we can see the definitions of our datum writer, data file writer over here. So this is how the serialization works. So we create a datum writer. So what happens is whatever the Java objects that we have created, that is our person array, it serialization works. So whatever the Java objects that we have created will convert it into an in-memory serialized format. You don't have to go deep into it because mostly it goes into a binary format and everything. So yeah, so let's move on to the code. So this datum writer, so we'll give the class as person because that's our main class. So what we are saying is that the type of the object that we're using is person. So it takes a person.class, converts it into a binary format. So what the specific datum writer says is that we are taking the schema of type person, which has a generated class.person.class. So with data file writer is nothing like a file writer in Java. So that's our Avro uses a data file writer. So we mentioned this thing and we mentioned what are the use and datum writer we have used over here. So now since we have to generate data, we have to create users, right? Isn't it? So what we say is data file writer, we have to create. So why do we do that? So why do we create? Because we need to create users and we need to say that these users will be of type something. So when we say list of users, that is whatever the person array is, then we say when we say get schema, it gives the schema, this whole schema to it, the whole person schema to it, so that we know that the list of users that we're gonna get are gonna use this particular schema. Yeah, so whichever user we are using, so for that particular thing we need to mention the schema, and we know that we have to write everything into this particular file that is declared over here. Fine. So then we say how many of our users we have. So what length of the person that we have given. We'll append those users into data file writer. So basically we are adding those users into the file. So that's how we do it in normal Java. We append whatever text file we have. Over here the difference is we have an Avro file. So whatever users we have generated, we serialize it and put it into data file writer and we close it when we are done, like how we close a normal file. And then we use deserialize because when we serialize, everything gets stored into a binary format. And when you read when you read a binary file, obviously we don't understand how it gets converted. So deserialize helps us to understand how we have put everything into a binary. So what it does is basically the other way around of serialize. So when we serialize everything, when we serialize the Java object into a in-memory format, deserialize takes in-memory format as input and gives us as a Java object. So we have to mention a file where we are putting all our output. So I'm creating an output txt so that it's better to see the data that we have generated, because in users.avro the data will be generated in a different manner and it's not easy to understand those. That's why I created output.txt. Don't worry about deleting file and everything. It's just that every time I run it, I don't want the data to get appended. I need a new data every time. So print writer is basically to write whatever I want into that particular file. Don't worry about it. The main thing is over here. So again we say datum reader. So first we said datum writer into the serialize. Now we say datum reader into the deserializer. So whatever writer has done, the reader will read it. So it's of type person, and then the same thing that we have done in serialize. So it was data file writer, now it's data file reader. It's easy to understand. So we create a user of person, and then what we do is we do next to get until how many users we have done, and then we just write it, and we just write everything into a file, and then we just close it. So let's try to run this. So let's try to run this particular class, and the first thing it asks is number of users. So let's say for now 5 users. So this is how the data is generated. let's go and see how the data we have got. So this is how the data is generated. Let's go and see. So the first field was person ID, right? So as you can see, each and every person has a different ID. So it's a unique in itself. And gender, everything is assigned as a random. Now in name, see, it's a record. This name is a record into a record, right? So inside name, there's a full name, there's a first name, and there's a last name. And the name gets end over here itself. And now we have address, and then we have phones, then we have email. Then again we have another record name as purchases. Sorry, it looks messy. Purchases. In purchases, again we have store ID, amount, brand name, generic. So like I said before, there can be many number of purchases. So in our randomization, we gave from 1 to 10. Let's say how many I've generated for the first user. So it's the first purchase, then this is the second one, and this is the third one, and this is the, yeah. So there are three generated for this particular thing. So as you can see, 303, 301, and 30. Cool, there are 4. 300 till 303. So there are 4 purchases that they have generated. So every time it will get generated differently. So that's how the data is generated. If you want to see how the Avro file looks like, make sure you see that. So this is how the Avro file looks like. So these are the characters that you won't be able to see because it's in .avro. So that's the reason I created a txt file to have a better understanding of how it works. So in Avro file, the first line always represents the type of schema. So as you can see, the name, gender, type. So name, again name, type. So type is a record. So basically it's a schema. The whole schema is generated in the first line, and this, as you can see, whatever is generated later is the data. This is the data that is generated over here into a different format. So that's how the Avro works. If you have any doubts or any query related to Avro, how serialization, deserialization work, you can see the link, or you can ask doubts in the comments. Anything related to code, if you didn't understand, you can ask me in the comments. All the links and everything I'll be adding on in the description, and most probably I'll be adding this code file as well to GitHub, so that you can have access. Let me scroll once more to the whole code so that you can pause the video whenever you want, and you can just copy paste in case I don't upload it to the GitHub. This is the first class public generation. Please pause and note it down to line number 53. After line number 53, so this is nothing but just a list of names of that. Awesome. So that's all from the code. There are many other things as well, but that is more related to the generic. So what happens is, when since in this time you know that whatever fields you are dealing with, what happens when you're given an AVDL in which you don't know the fields, so you don't open the AVDL, and then still you can write a generic class, but that is not required for this particular video. Hopefully I'll make something related to generic in the next video. Thank you.